Supposed Bible contradiction. Did Jesus come to make war or peace? Many atheists cite Matthew 10:34 to claim Jesus wanted his followers to be violent against people who oppose the gospel. However, there are several other places where Jesus encourages peace and his followers to withhold violence in the face of persecution. So do we have a contradiction? Well, it would help if we actually focus on what this passage is telling us. First, remember Jesus was an oral rabbi, as we covered in our series on the reliability of the New Testament. He used parables, metaphors, and wordplay so that his teachings would be easy to remember. So obviously he is not always being literal, which is why we need to study the context to understand the meaning of specific passages. Second, Jesus never encourages anyone, ever, to pick up a sword and kill those who oppose the gospel. We need to distinguish between the commands of Christ and the results of Christ's commands. He commanded people to follow him and believe in him only. When his followers did this, the world would hate them and persecute them for it. Thus, the result of following Jesus would cause families and friends to divide. Jesus didn't come to make peace with the religions and ideologies of the world. He wasn't here to get along and compromise with other belief systems, which was the opposite of what Rome did with the religions of the people they conquered. Jesus came to directly challenge the belief systems of the world and declare he was the only way and the only truth, which would ultimately anger people who thought there were many gods and many truths. In that sense, Jesus was making war. He was not commanding the physical conquest of people who disagreed with him. His war was fought over hearts and minds. As scholar Leon Morris said, "The peace he came to bring is not simply the absence of strife. It is a peace that means the overcoming of sin and the bringing in of the salvation of God. And that means war with evil, and accordingly hostility against those who support the ways of wrong." So it is that Jesus says that, far from peace, he comes to bring a sword, that is, conflict. The sword is not, of course, meant literally, but it is an obvious symbol of conflict. It is a stern reminder of the fact that to follow the one whom his followers delight to call the Prince of Peace sometimes means disunity and conflict. A sword divides, so does the truth which Jesus came to bring. This, of course, makes more sense with the context. Jesus never commands people to wage war on different religions. He tells his followers, if a town rejects you, to dust off your feet and simply move on, that you will be persecuted and to simply take it for the glory of God, to flee instead of fighting. The whole chapter is about how Jesus' message will not be accepted by all, and that we ought to realize his message will be waging a spiritual war. So skeptics that try this argument clearly are quote mining and did not read the whole chapter. They seem to be trying to force Jesus to sound violent when there was really no scholarly evidence of that. Thus, this supposed contradiction can be resolved.